Do you know why all hospitals is haunted? Some say because it is a place where life and death happens. Or is it these are encounter and experiences from some of the nurses and residents? Number one, I've worked in healthcare for over 20 years now, and I have a couple from working in nursing homes of seeing the figure in black shooting across the hall, and then in the next 24 hours, a resident will die, and then in less than a week, another one will pass as well. But my favorite story is this. I worked at a very small hospital, maybe 30 beds. It has been around for many years. In the basement is, of course, the old morgue, and there is one elevator that goes from the basement to the main floor outside the nurse's station. This elevator would come up in the middle of the night randomly, and the doors would open, and all the staff would get up to go find the patient who just passed away. One night, my coworkers and I were sitting at the nurse's station, and down the short hall to our right, we hear this TV come on, and the volume is up as loud as it can go. One of my CWs, and I walk down said hall to find the TV and to turn it down. There is one room down that hall that the maintenance guy has the door closed and hang the "Do Not Enter" signs on the door. After looking in all the open rooms, there is no other room but the closed one for us to look in. We open the door. There is nothing in this room except the TV. I walked in, turned the TV off, and said, "Stop that. There's a sick baby next door who needs to sleep. So please be quiet." I walked out and closed the door with no further incidents with the TV. Number two, this isn't scary, but it haunts me more than anything. I had a young mother come into labor and delivery for a scheduled CS for triplets at 33 weeks. As a PGY2, I was doing her H&P and ultrasound for fetal position. She was super squirrely and nervous, so I asked her if there was anything that I could do to help allay her concerns. She told me they had warned her of all these terrible things that would happen to her with a multiple pregnancy, and none had. Heck, she'd been mall walking yesterday, and the babies were all projected to be over 4 pounds, hence the CS now. Then she said, "I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop." I tried to reassure her that everything looked great. Her CS did go well, and all 3 babies were big. I rounded on her that next morning and went off service. I even told her that, see, she hadn't anything to worry about. She died the next day from acute cardiac decomposition while in a helicopter on the way to another hospital when trying to get a heart transplant. She apparently had been developing dilated cardiomyopathy, and the uterus pressing on her SVC was keeping her compensated. The delivery killed her. She knew. Somehow, she just knew. That bothers me more than any ghosts. Number 3. On one of my old floors I worked on, we always had weird occurrences happen at night. It was a neuro step-down unit. This unit had glass walls, so you could chart and monitor your patient. We had a patient who had a severe stroke and was nonverbal. Feeding tube, restrained, total care, etc. They rarely had family visit too. In the middle of the night, one of the patient, their call light went off. When I answered it, a woman said, "He is really hurting. He needs his pain medicine." So I walk into the room to check on him. The room is dark, nobody's in there, and the patient is sleeping. I tell his nurse what happened, and I go and sit back down at the CN desk. The call light goes off again. It is his room. Same voice. "Please, he's really hurting." I get up and walk back to the room. Same story. I tell his nurse, and she gives him pain medicine through his peg, and we reposition him in bed. The call light does not go off again. It was really eerie. Strange things happened on that floor. Number 4, I started my nursing career at a small and very old urban hospital. So small that they were closing it all up. I worked in labor and delivery, and we were the only unit left. There were a bunch of clinics and offices, but they weren't open nights, weekends. One night, we had to do a reasonably emergent CS on a patient who was from out of town, meaning she didn't have a support person with her. As far as I remember, the CS was going well. I was scrubbed in. We were in the middle of it when the patient stopped responding to the anesthetist. Her vitals were all normal, but she just stopped talking, stopped responding to questions. I could hear the anesthetist ask her, "Hey, are you okay?" a few times. After a few minutes, the patient started responding again, and all was well. I had her in recovery room, just me and her. The babies were in the NICU. And things were pretty straightforward. But I did mention to her about the strange episode during the CS. She said, I saw my grandmother in the OR. I was so scared, and I asked her to hold my hand, but she told me that she couldn't touch me. That sure was something for a 23-yo to hear at 3 a.m. in a room far away from any of my coworkers, in a very, very old and empty hospital. Number 5. My first nursing job was night shift on a unit that was slowly reopening after a renovation. It was on the top floor of the hospital, will be important later. None of us liked going to the supply closet alone because it was so dark and quiet down that hall. One night, I went to answer a call light. The patient, who was completely A&O, asked me to tell those kids to quit playing in my bathroom. I immediately asked one of the senior nurses what was up. She explained the many lives that unit had led. PDs, AIDS hospice, then to post-acute LTC. The elevator would come up to our floor at least once a night with nobody in it. The doors would then open and close rapidly until the elevator was spoken to. We had taken a vote and named our resident's ghost Georgie. As soon as somebody said, "Hi, Georgie," the elevator shenanigans stopped. Patients sometimes reported seeing strange men in their rooms. We had no male staff on the unit. Call lights occasionally went off in empty rooms, even ones that were unplugged. It was eerie, but I never got the sense that Georgie and friends meant us harm. If you enjoy this type of content and would like to see more of it and support the channel, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications.